All right, what I'm about to talk about with you is what I consider to be one of the coolest things ever. It's God's fingerprints, the way the world works and what we're supposed to be doing while we're here. And it's super clear using something that you wouldn't expect. Drugs, illicit drugs, in fact. Understanding how and why drugs work and recognizing what we're supposed to be doing, they're really linked. They come together quite well. So I want to start with a real basic idea of how the brain works when it comes to drugs and emotion. This is a very simple drawing of a brain cell or neuron. And real simple and very basic, there's shapes inside neurons, and those shapes are neurotransmitters. They're basically the brain's drugs. And those shapes must fit the receptors according to the shape. Triangles going to triangles, squares going to squares, circles into circles. Basic stuff. We have about 80 or so neurotransmitters inside our head. I'm going to talk about 4 specific ones today. When we go to what we're supposed to do in life, well, we all have these desires. And we all have these feelings and these things that we pursue. In Kabbalah, they talk about the desires of the heart. And they say there are 613 desires. And all these individual little desires are competing with this one big desire. The desire at the center, the point in the heart. And that can be described as what they say is Israel. And Israel in Hebrew means connection to God, or straight to God. Isra is connection, and El is Elohim. And so Israel means connected to God. That's a desire, to be connected to God. But then you have tons of other desires in the heart. In Kabbalah, they call those nations. And those nations are fighting with Israel. And it's a war going on in our heart. And all these desires are doing battle with each other. Now, our desires, you got some basic desires, your, of course, pursuit of food and shelter and safety, all that kind of stuff, normal desires. You also have desires for flesh things, say to make money, to win a Super Bowl, lots of different types of desires. And they're all found in our heart, we're all craving that kind of stuff. But we've got one primary desire for Israel, and that's the ultimate desire. It's also the one thing we're supposed to be doing, having this connection to this deepest self inside ourselves. And that connection is known as being connected to God. So how do drugs work? There was an amazing study I was just reading about the other day on LSD and how LSD works. And the study very simply goes like this. Think of your favorite song, whatever your favorite song is. And think of how you feel when you hear that song. Good, I would imagine. And you like that song, and it might provide you some deep meaning, a deep connection. Now, think of a song you don't like, or a type of music you don't like. And if I play that music for you right now, you wouldn't feel especially connected. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't say, this song is so loaded with meaning, I love it. Well, when they did this study with people and they asked them for their favorite song and songs they don't like, and they played that music for them, they would report just what you'd expect. Yes, I like that. No, I didn't like that. Until they gave them certain medicines. They gave 2 different medicines out. One, they gave a little LSD combined with a chemical that blocks the effects of LSD. And when they gave that medicine to people, they reported what you'd expect. I like that music and I don't like that music. But some people got just straight LSD, microdose, very small amount. And whatever song you played for that person, they loved it. It didn't matter. They said, oh, that's the deepest music ever. I'm feeling so connected. It wouldn't matter what you played for them. What's happening? That's because LSD activates a certain receptor called the serotonin receptor inside the brain. And when it activates that receptor, you feel significant meaning. You feel deep meaning because that receptor's activated. It actually has nothing to do with the song. It has everything to do with that receptor being activated. And if that receptor is activated, you're going to say, that's deep meaning. I really like that. There's another drug that people use that get that feeling called ecstasy. And when someone takes ecstasy, they call it the love drug, they feel connected to everything. Well, guess what ecstasy does? It takes the serotonin levels inside the brain through the roof. Tremendous feeling of meaning and connection and love with everybody. That is what happens when serotonin receptors are activated inside the brain. Antidepressants are medicines that try to boost serotonin levels. They're trying to boost it. And if it works, you'll feel a little better. You'll feel more meaningful. When you have no serotonin activating those receptors, that's what we call depression. That's when people say, I don't feel any meaning in my life, because they're not having serotonin activate the receptors. Meanwhile, LSD will totally activate those receptors, and now all of a sudden everything is meaningful. It's why we're experimenting more and more and doing more and more studies with the effective use of psychedelics for depression, because it helps people pretty quickly, way quicker than antidepressants do. I'm not advocating the use of any of these drugs, by the way. I'm just saying we can learn from them. So what do psychedelics do? They activate serotonin receptors in the brain, and they give us this sense of deep meaning. Now, another drug inside of our brain, dopamine, gets produced whenever you're excited about something. Well, when you take cocaine, that takes dopamine through the roof. It's also a receptor, a neurotransmitter and a receptor in the brain, and when they hook up inside the brain, you feel really excited. You really look forward to things. If you have a favorite football team playing on Sunday, you might look forward to the game before kickoff. That'll be dopamine. Anything in your life that you're excited for will produce dopamine. And so if you have meaning, you'll produce serotonin. If you are excited for it, you'll produce dopamine. Now, if the game doesn't go so well, or you're excited for something and it's not going very well, and you're struggling with it, you'll produce stress chemicals inside your body. And you might even start to doubt. And if you start to feel a lot of anxiety about your process, fortunately, merciful God, merciful nature, has another chemical inside your brain called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. That medicine or drug inside your brain is similar to what benzodiazepines, which are Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, those types of medicines, and alcohol do. Similar, work with the same receptors. GABA relaxes you, okay? It calms you down when you're especially nervous and anxious. And so if you're on a journey and things aren't going so well, there are medicines available to you or drugs available to you to calm you down, but they only work because you have a natural sedative inside your brain called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. And lastly, we have a chemical inside our brain called endorphins. Endorphins are a very peace-inducing feeling. It's a pain-relieving feeling. Most people I've worked with in the addiction world say it's the ultimate drug, opioids. The ultimate drug, because it provides this deep sense of peace and accomplishment, and really you're okay with everything in the world. That is the opioid effect when it gets into the receptor, but it's really just mirroring the endorphins, which are already naturally occurring in your brain. So, back to desires. We have a four-step process using brain chemistry and illicit drugs, LSD, cocaine, benzos or alcohol, not illicit there. Opioids, of course, if you take them legally, not illicit. Well, we have all these desires. Well, it starts with meaning. Pick anything that you feel meaningful about. Make it something like, I would like to write a song. You know, I want to be a musician and write a good song. And if you feel that feeling of meaning, you're going to feel a little bit better. I'm like, I have purpose in my life. And if you have purpose, you'll produce serotonin. And when you have that feeling, now you feel a little better. There's a purpose that I'm supposed to be doing. And then, if you get excited about doing that, say writing that song, now you're going to produce some dopamine. Your brain will kick out a second chemical, and now you're looking forward to following through on that meaning. You're producing serotonin now and dopamine. But it's hard to write a song, a good one. And you might be working on it for several months, and there could be some stress along the way. And if you get too uptight about it and too upset about it, you might stop the journey right there. Well, some people will take a benzodiazepine or alcohol to try to stop that feeling, but the brain has natural sedatives inside of it, the GABA, which also does the same thing, which can relax you and say, just chill out. It's okay. It's a long journey. You're going to be fine. But then you finally write that song and you feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of peace. You've done what you were supposed to do. The opioid effect, that deep feeling of peace, that deep sense of satisfaction, is naturally occurring in the form of endorphins. This is what you produce whenever you've actually succeeded in some sort of a goal. When a person is looking forward to a football game, that's dopamine. When they succeed and win the game, they'll produce endorphins. The desire to actually go play that game because it's important to serotonin. And relaxing when you're losing by a touchdown in the third quarter is the GABA. It's all right there. Now each one of these connects to all these different desires. Whatever your desire, you can walk this path. you're going to be way more likely to succeed if you walk this path in this order. First, establish meaning. Second, get excited about it. Third, relax during it. And fourth, when you pull it off, you're going to have this high. I did it. I feel good. Problem is, every one of these desires end up disappointing us. They actually, when you're done, you actually end up craving something else. Hey, I finished my song. Now what? Very famously, Aaron Rodgers, after winning the Super Bowl, when he beat the Steelers in Super Bowl 45, he said he felt somewhat empty. He felt there must be more to life than this, right? Tom Brady said something similar after he won one of his Super Bowls. And he said there's got to be more to life than this. They both said it's not all it's cracked up to be. That's because once you accomplish a desire like winning the Super Bowl, hey, it's not enough. There's more to be done. You can write a great song, more to be done. You can get a new job, more to be done. You can have a family, more to be done. None of those things will ultimately satisfy you. The first noble truth of Buddhism, Buddha says life is ultimately unsatisfying. The physical life is. Because these desires, it doesn't matter how many you walk through, you'll walk through all of them and then you'll say, what's next? Well, there's one desire, this desire known as Israel, the desire to be connected to God, that's the end game. And it works the exact same. Once you get to a point in your life where you establish the meaning as what I'm here to do is find my highest possible self. What I'm here to do is to reconnect with who I really am. Religion, by the way, the word religion means to reconnect. We're supposed to connect to the divine true self. If that's God to you, then that's what you're supposed to be doing. Not down here accomplishing a bunch of physical tasks. Rumi very perfectly says in my favorite, one of his favorite teachings, is that we all come here to do one thing. If you do a great many other things, you've done nothing at all, unless you do that one thing. But if you do that one thing, you will have done everything. Well, that one thing is to establish that connection. And if you establish that as meaning, guess what? Lots of serotonin. And if you're around other people that have established that as a meaning, now that's ecstasy. That's the love drug. Now I feel connected to that force. You feel connected to that force. We all have established a collective meaning. That feels way better when we're working on that together. That is the meaning that comes with the feeling of unity. The feeling of connecting to people who might otherwise be different. The feeling of letting go of your past and the bad things that might have happened. And forgiving others. Those types of things. Once you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing, now you're starting to feel a little better. But you're not done. That's like kickoff. You've just established the meaning. Getting excited for it is, hey, I want to go looking for this. I want to figure this out. I want to do some things to actually pull this off. I want to win this game. Now that I know that's what the game is, I want to win it. I'm not satisfied to get third place. And that's not good enough either. Every prophet teaches some version of perfection. You got to win the game. You got to get fully connected. And to get excited for that is going to produce a cocaine-like feeling inside the brain. All low grade, that's important because it's all sustainable. If I was just using LSD to do this, well, that's not sustainable. Plus, it's going to throw you off your rails a few different ways. Cocaine, same thing. That's a short-term, extreme elevation of dopamine, and it's non-sustainable. You use that over time, your dopamine actually plummets, and now you find no excitement for anything. If you're disconnected and you don't have any meaning, you'll produce no serotonin. If you're not excited and enthusiastic for something, you won't produce any dopamine. And if you freak out along the way at every adversity, right? Other people don't like to talk about this. Look at the world, it's in a state of disarray. I fail every day, and you just create a whole lot of stress inside yourself. Well, guess what? Taking a deep breath, relaxing, meditation, mindfulness. Studies have shown that really long, slow nature walks produce GABA. High intensity exercise produces endorphins, right? So the brain has this chemistry always available to you. And if you produce the GABA along this journey, you're going to relax because it's a long journey, it's a marathon. And now you're going to stay connected to the meaning, and you can continue to get excited about it. Because this will help relax you, which will give you endurance. And then when you succeed at it, that's the payoff, that's the opioids, right? That's your natural opioids. When you produce tons of endorphins, your actual desire has been fulfilled. You came to get connected to God, you get closer and closer to it. The more you actually do the fruits of the Spirit, the more you actually love other people, the more you actually forgive others and yourself, the more you feel connected to everybody, The more you do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. The more you have compassion for all, tons of endorphins, right? Again, sustainable. You could use heroin, and that's just cheating. That's getting to the point quick. And then you think you've accomplished it, but you've accomplished nothing. And the overuse of opioids leads to a plummeting of endorphins inside the system. So what's the process from beginning to end? We are not here to do all these other physical things. In fact, if you go through any spiritual teachings, they don't talk about the behaviors you're supposed to do to impress God. It doesn't exist. There's nothing like that. It's all spiritual stuff, okay? It's the fruits of the Spirit. John 6:63, Jesus says the flesh counts for nothing. And if your desire is of the flesh, like, I'm going to convince other people to see things my way, well, that's not going to get you very far. You're going to end up arguing a whole lot, okay? But if you do, Buddha's last words, strive for your own liberation with diligence, now you can work on this, and you'll be much more effective helping others because you learned it and felt it yourself. So the process is to say, hey, I'm here to do that one thing. It doesn't mean all these other desires go away. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, says Jesus, and all the rest will be added to you. You'll actually get better at your other desires if you do it like this. But when you seek first the kingdom of heaven and you work on this Israel, now you've established meaning. Now you can get excited about it. You got to relax during it. And when you succeed at it, you're going to have an endorphin rush. It's the best high ever. Put it all together, I call this a chemical cocktail. You might call that nirvana or the kingdom of heaven, where Jesus specifically says it is found inside you.